Listen if you dare.
I've been collecting these stories for years now. For couples. For perfect relationships that should have lasted forever. For nightmares that still make me check my locks twice before bed. These aren't urban legends or campfire tales. These are real accounts from real people who trusted the wrong person at the wrong time. Or maybe, and this is what keeps me up at night, they trusted the right person who simply revealed their true nature when no one else was watching. Before we begin, let me tell you something important. Every single one of these people ignored their gut. Every single one of them felt that cold tickle at the base of their spine and talked themselves out of it. Love has a way of making us stupid like that. It makes us override every survival instinct our ancestors spent millions of years developing. So settle in. Turn on some lights if you need to. And remember, the person sleeping next to you right now is, statistically speaking, the most dangerous person in your life. My hands are still shaking as I write this. And it's been 3 weeks since that weekend. 3 weeks since I learned that the man I've been dating for 8 months, the man I'd introduced to my parents, the man I'd been planning to move in with, was someone I never really knew at all. It started so normally. God, that's what makes it worse. The absolute mundane normalcy of it all. Jake had been talking about this cabin for months. His family's cabin, he called it. Nestled in the Cascade Mountains, 2 hours from Seattle, off a dirt road that only locals knew about. It's perfect, he kept saying. No cell service, no internet, just us in the woods and a fireplace. We need this, Sarah. We've both been so stressed with work. He wasn't wrong about the stress. I was pulling 60-hour weeks at the firm, barely sleeping, living on coffee and anxiety. The idea of unplugging for a long weekend sounded like exactly what I needed. A chance to reconnect with Jake, to remember why we worked so well together. I should have questioned why he insisted on going in late October, after the main hiking season ended. I should have wondered why he seemed so specific about the dates. October 23rd through 26th, no flexibility. I should have thought it was odd when he asked me not to tell anyone exactly where we were going. Let's just keep it our thing, he'd said, smiling that smile that used to make my stomach flip. No social media, no check-ins, just us. Red flag number 1. But I was tired and in love and stupid. We left Seattle on Friday afternoon, Jake's truck loaded with supplies. I remember feeling excited as we drove north, watching the city fade behind us. Jake was in a great mood, singing along to the radio, reaching over to squeeze my hand. Normal. Everything was so goddamn normal. The drive took longer than expected. We left the highway, then the main roads, then even the paved secondary roads. For the last 40 minutes, we bounced along a rutted dirt track that barely qualified as a road. Trees pressed in on both sides, their branches scraping against the truck's roof like skeletal fingers. Are you sure this is right? I asked, watching the GPS lose signal. This seems really remote. That's the point, babe, Jake said. His voice was light, but I noticed his hands tightening on the steering wheel. Wait until you see it. My grandfather built this place with his own hands back in the 60s. It's like stepping back in time. Red flag number 2. The way he said stepping back in time made something in my stomach twist. The cabin appeared suddenly, almost like it had been waiting for us. It was smaller than I'd imagined from Jake's descriptions. A single-story structure with weathered wood siding and a sagging front porch. The windows were dark, reflecting the dying light. Behind it, the forest pressed close, a wall of Douglas firs and hemlocks that seemed to swallow sound. Home sweet home, Jake announced, killing the engine. The silence that followed was absolute. No traffic sounds, no distant voices, not even birdsong. Just the ticking of the cooling engine and the wind moving through the trees. I'd grown up in the suburbs, lived my whole adult life in cities. I'd never experienced silence like this. It felt heavy, oppressive, like the forest was holding its breath. It's very quiet, I said, trying to keep my voice light. That's what I love about it. Jake was already out of the truck, moving to the back to grab our bags. Come on, let's get inside before it gets dark. The cabin's interior was exactly what you'd expect from a hunting lodge built in the 60s. Exposed beam ceiling, stone fireplace dominating one wall, a small kitchenette with a propane stove, a dingy couch facing the fireplace, and a single bedroom off to the side. Everything was covered in a fine layer of dust. Cobwebs stretched across the corners. It smelled like mothballs and old wood and something else. Something sweet and rotten that I couldn't quite place. "When's the last time anyone was here?" I asked, running my finger along a windowsill and watching the dust swirl. Jake was already building a fire, his back to me. "My dad came up last spring, I think. Maybe early summer. That smell, though. That sweet, rotten smell. It was stronger near the bedroom door. I'm going to check out the bedroom," I called, moving toward the partially open door. "Wait." Jake's voice was sharp, sudden. I froze, my hand on the doorknob. When I turned, he was standing, facing me. The fire he'd been building cast strange shadows across his face. "Let me check it first. There might be mice or something. You know how you are about mice." I did hate mice, but something about the way he said it, the way he moved quickly past me and shut the bedroom door firmly behind him, made that twist in my stomach intensify. I heard him moving around in there, heard what sounded like dragging, heard a window being opened. 5 minutes passed, then 10. When he finally emerged, he was slightly out of breath and his hands were dirty. "All clear," he said, smiling. "Just had to air it out a bit. Why don't you get the food organized in the kitchen while I finish the fire?" Red flag number 3. But I was already here, already 2 hours from civilization, already committed to the weekend. So I unpacked groceries and told myself I was being paranoid. That first night was almost nice. We cooked steaks on the propane stove, drank wine, sat by the fire. Jake seemed relaxed, affectionate. He told stories about coming here as a kid, about his grandfather teaching him to fish in a creek that ran somewhere beyond the trees. He was charming, attentive, everything I'd fallen for 8 months ago. But I couldn't shake that smell. Even with the fire going, even with the bedroom window open, I could still catch whiffs of it. Sweet and rotten, like flowers left too long in a vase. "Do you smell that?" I asked, finally, interrupting one of his stories. Jake paused mid-sentence. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Smell what?" "That sweet smell. Kind of sickly." "Oh, that." He laughed, taking a sip of wine. "Probably a dead mouse in the walls. Happens all the time in old cabins. I'll look for it tomorrow." Reasonable explanation. Totally reasonable. So why didn't I believe him? We went to bed around midnight. The bedroom was freezing despite the space heater Jake had set up. The bed itself was lumpy, covered with blankets that smelled like cedar and age. I lay there in the darkness, listening to Jake's breathing even out beside me, listening to the cabin settle and creak around us. That's when I heard it. A scratching sound, soft, rhythmic, coming from beneath the floorboards. I held my breath, straining to hear. There it was again. Scratch, 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 pause, scratch, scratch, scratch. "Jake," I whispered, shaking his shoulder. "Do you hear that?" He mumbled something, rolled over. The scratching stopped. I told myself it was mice. Just mice like Jake said. Old cabins have mice. I pulled the blankets tighter, and eventually, exhausted from the drive and the wine, I slept. I woke to find Jake's side of the bed empty. Weak morning light filtered through the thin curtains. I could hear sound from the main room. Footsteps, cabinet doors opening and closing. "Jake!" I called. No answer. I got up, shivering in the cold, and pulled on the heavy sweater I'd brought. The smell hit me as soon as I opened the bedroom door. Stronger now. Definitely not mice. Jake was at the kitchenette, his back to me. He was wearing work gloves and holding a trash bag. "Morning," I said. He spun around, startled. For just a second, less than a second, I saw something in his face. Something hard and cold. Then it was gone, replaced by his usual easy smile. "Morning, babe. Did I wake you?" I was trying to be quiet. "What are you doing?" "Just taking out some trash. This place needs a good cleaning." He tied off the bag, still wearing the gloves. "Listen, I need to run into town for a few things. We're low on propane, and I want to grab some mousetraps. You okay here for a couple hours?" Every alarm bell in my head started ringing at once. We just gotten here yesterday. We brought plenty of propane, and he wanted to leave me alone here in the middle of nowhere. "I'll come with you," I said quickly. "No need. You just woke up. Make some coffee, relax." I'll be back before you know it." He was already moving toward the door, trash bag in hand. "Oh, and Sarah, don't go outside while I'm gone, okay? There've been bear sightings around here. Not safe to be out alone." Then he was gone. I heard the truck start, heard the crunch of tires on gravel fading into the distance, and then that terrible silence closed back in. For several minutes, I just stood there. Then I did what I should have done the moment we arrived. I tried my phone. No signal. Of course. I went to the window, looked out at the forest. Nothing moved. No birds, no squirrels, nothing. Just trees and shadows, and that feeling of being watched. The smell was worse. Now that I was alone, now that Jake wasn't here to distract me with explanations and easy smiles, I could track it. It was definitely strongest near the bedroom, specifically near the back corner where the floorboards looked slightly newer than the rest. I knew I shouldn't look. Every instinct screamed at me to just wait for Jake to come back, to get in the truck with him and leave and never come back. But another part of me, the part that had ignored all those red flags, needed to know. I found a butter knife in the kitchen drawer and went to the bedroom. The newer floorboards weren't nailed down. They lifted easily with the knife's edge. And underneath, I'm going to tell you what I found because you need to understand. You need to understand what kind of monsters walk around looking like normal people. Under those floorboards was a shallow crawl space. And in that crawl space was a body. Not a recent body. This had been there for months, maybe longer. But I could still see that it had been a woman. I could see long dark hair matted with dirt. I could see what was left of a dress, floral print, sundress, the kind you'd wear on a romantic cabin getaway. I could see rope marks on what remained of her wrists. I think I screamed. I don't remember. The next thing I knew, I was in the main room, my back against the door, shaking so hard my teeth rattled. Jake's family cabin. His grandfather's cabin. The place he'd been talking about for months. The specific dates he'd insisted on. That don't tell anyone exactly where we are. This wasn't a romantic weekend. This was a hunting trip, and I was the prey. I don't know how long I stood there, trying to make my brain work through the panic. But eventually, survival instinct kicked in. Jake had been gone maybe 20 minutes. He'd said a couple hours. Even if he sped, I had time. I couldn't take the truck. He had the keys. Running into the forest would be suicide. I'd be lost in minutes. My phone had no signal, but maybe if I got a higher ground. I ran outside, looking for any elevation. Behind the cabin, the ground sloped upward toward a small ridge. I started climbing, branches tearing at my clothes, my sweater snagging on thorns. Higher. I needed to get higher. At the top of the ridge, gasping for breath, I checked my phone. One bar. One beautiful bar of signal. I called 911. 911. What's your emergency? I'm in a cabin in the Cascades. There's a body under the floor. The man I came here with. I think he's going to kill me. I think he's killed before. Please, I need the signal cut out. I tried again. Nothing. I sent desperate texts to my sister, my best friend, my boss, anyone who might see them when signal returned. Help. Cabin Cascade Mountains. Jake murdered someone. Send police. Then I heard it. The sound of a truck engine in the distance. He was coming back. I ran. Not back to the cabin. I couldn't go back there. Couldn't face him knowing what I knew. I ran parallel to the dirt road, staying the tree line, branches whipping my face, roots trying to trip me. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs threatened to give out. Behind me, I heard the truck stop, heard a door slam. Then, faint but clear, I heard him calling my name. Sarah? Sarah, where are you? His voice was still friendly, still concerned. Like a boyfriend worried about his missing girlfriend. Like he hadn't brought me here to add me to his collection. I pressed myself behind a massive fir tree, trying to control my breathing. Through the trees, I could see him standing by the cabin, turning in a circle. Sarah, this isn't funny. Come out. A pause. Then, quieter, like he was talking to himself. Where the fuck did she go? He went inside. I heard crashing sounds, heard him calling my name, his voice getting progressively angrier. When he came back out, he was holding something. Even from this distance, I could see it was a hunting knife. You went in the bedroom, didn't you? He shouted. You found her. Sarah, you need to understand, that wasn't my fault. She threatened to leave me, just like you're doing now. I love her, Sarah. I loved you too. Why do you all have to ruin things? Her. The woman under the floor had been his girlfriend. Just like me. He started walking into the forest, moving methodically, searching. I know you're out here. You can't survive out here alone, Sarah. No food, no water, no cell service. You'll get lost. You'll get hurt. Come back now, and we can talk about this. I stayed frozen, watching him get closer. 30 yards away. 20 yards. 10. Then I heard it. The most beautiful sound in the world. Sirens. Jake heard them too. He stopped, turned back toward the road. I saw his shoulders slump, saw him drop the knife. Fuck, he said. Just that. Fuck. 3 police cars came screaming up that dirt road, lights blazing. Later, they told me that my text had gone through the second I got signal, and my sister had immediately called 911. They told me that when they ran Jake's information, red flags had appeared, missing persons reports from 2 other states, unsolved disappearances of women who'd been dating him, a pattern of moving every few years to new cities. They told me I was lucky. But here's the thing about luck. I don't feel lucky. I feel stupid. I feel angry. I feel like some fundamental part of my ability to trust has been permanently damaged. They found 3 more bodies in the woods around that cabin. 3 more women who'd trusted Jake, who'd thought they were in love, who'd gone to a romantic cabin for a weekend getaway. The woman under the floor was named Rebecca. She'd been a kindergarten teacher from Portland. She'd been missing for 14 months. Her family had been searching for her all that time, never giving up hope. At Jake's trial, his defense attorney tried to paint him as someone with a mental illness, someone who couldn't control his impulses. But I sat in that courtroom and watched him, and I saw the truth. He wasn't sick. He wasn't compelled. He liked it. He liked the planning, the manipulation, the control. He liked watching women realize too late that they'd made a terrible mistake. He's in prison now. Life without parole times 4. Sometimes I get letters from him. I never open them, but I can feel them, these thin envelopes full of poison, and I imagine him writing them in his cell, still thinking he has some kind of claim on me. I don't date anymore. People say that's sad, that I shouldn't let him win, that I should get back out there. But they don't understand. It's not about letting him win. It's about the fact that I was a smart, capable, educated woman, and he fooled me completely. For 8 months, I looked at a murderer and saw a boyfriend. I kissed him goodnight and never tasted the blood on his hands. So now I'm alone, and I'm okay with that, because being alone is safe. Being alone means I'm the only person I have to trust. And if you're reading this, thinking about that new person you're seeing, the one who seems perfect, the one who wants to take you somewhere remote and romantic, listen to your gut. Listen to those alarm bells. Listen to that small voice that says something's not quite right. Because by the time you find a body under the floorboards, it's already too late. I need to tell you about Olivia, about the apartment, about the sounds. I need to tell someone, even if no one believes me. Even if you think I'm crazy or paranoid or making excuses. I know what I heard. I know what happened. And I know that she's still up there, still waiting. It started normally mundane even. That's how these things always start, right? With normalcy. With the ordinary rhythm of life that lulls you into thinking you're safe. I met Olivia through a dating app. Hinge, if it matters. Her profile showed a pretty brunette with a bright smile. Someone who loved hiking and cooking and classic movies. We matched, we texted, we met for coffee. She was charming, intelligent, easy to talk to. Our first coffee date turned into lunch. Lunch turned into a walk through Prospect Park. The walk turned into dinner. By the time we said goodnight, I was already hooked. We dated for 3 months before I met any of her friends or family. Every time I suggested she come to a party with me or meet my brother, she'd find an excuse. I'm not ready for that yet, she'd say. I like having you to myself. It seemed romantic at the time. Looking back, it was isolation 101. I lived in a rent-controlled apartment in Brooklyn, ground floor of an old brownstone. I'd been there for 5 years, knew all my neighbors, loved the neighborhood. When Olivia started staying over more frequently, it seemed natural. We'd wake up together, make breakfast, spend lazy Sundays reading the paper in bed. Perfect domestic bliss. Then, about 4 months into dating, she started talking about her apartment situation. Her roommate was moving out. She said, rent was going up. She didn't know if she could afford to stay in the city. What if I moved in here? She asked one Sunday morning, her head on my chest. Would that be crazy? It's probably too soon, right? It was too soon. Way too soon. But I was 34 and tired of dating, and she seemed like everything I'd been looking for. Stable, affectionate, present. So I said yes. She moved in the following week. Looking back, I realized how quickly she pushed for that. How ready she was. How she already had everything packed. The first week was fine. Great even. She cooked dinner most nights. We watched movies on the couch. She seemed genuinely happy to be there. But I started noticing small things. How she'd stiffen when we passed certain people in the neighborhood. How she'd insist we go to restaurants in different parts of Brooklyn, never close to home. How she became anxious if I spent too much time on my phone. Who are you texting? She'd ask, her voice light but her eyes sharp. Just my brother, I'd say, or just work. And she'd smile and relax, but not before I caught that flash of something else in her expression. Something that looked like relief. The sound started 3 weeks after she moved in. It was late, maybe 2 a.m. I woke up to a rhythmic thumping sound coming from above. The apartment upstairs had been empty for months. The owner had died, and the family was going through probate. I'd enjoyed the quiet, the lack of footsteps and television noise and midnight showers. But now someone was up there, walking, heavy footsteps back and forth, back and forth. You hear that? I whispered to Olivia. She was already awake, staring at the ceiling. In the darkness, I couldn't read her expression. Yeah, she said quietly. I hear it. Someone must have moved into the upstairs apartment. That's weird. The landlord didn't mention anything. The footsteps continued for another 10 minutes, then stopped. Silence. I fell back asleep, thinking nothing of it. But the next night, the same thing. And the night after that, always starting around 2 a.m. Always the same pattern. Heavy footsteps, back and forth like someone pacing. Sometimes I'd hear what sounded like furniture being dragged across the floor. Once I swear I heard sobbing, soft and muffled. After a week of this, I ran into my landlord, Mr. Chun, in the hallway. Hey, did someone move into 2B? I asked. He looked confused. 2B? No, still empty. Why? I've been hearing footsteps. Every night around 2 a.m. Mr. Chun frowned. That's not possible. I haven't shown the apartment to anyone yet. Keys are still in my office. Maybe it's the pipes. Old building. Pipes don't sound like footsteps. Pipes don't stop. But I nodded and smiled and let it drop. That night, I mentioned the conversation to Olivia. Chin says no one's moving upstairs, I said. But we both hear it, right? I'm not crazy. She was chopping vegetables for dinner, her back to me. Her knife movements paused just for a second. You're not crazy. I hear it too. Maybe someone's squatting up there. That made sense. Sort of. Brooklyn had a homeless population. It wouldn't be unprecedented for someone to break into an empty apartment. I should probably check it out, I said. Make sure someone didn't break in. The knife resumed its rhythmic chopping. Or we could just call the landlord. Let him deal with it. Yeah, I guess. But something about her tone bothered me. Something about the way she hadn't turned around. The way she kept her eyes on the cutting board. It was like she was trying very hard to seem casual. That night, the footsteps started at 1:45 a.m., earlier than usual, and this time they were different. Frantic, running. I heard a crash, like something heavy falling, then silence. Then, clear as day, a single word. Please. A woman's voice. Hoarse, desperate. Iset på Delpites. Did you hear that? Olivia's eyes were wide in the darkness. She grabbed my arm hard. Don't what? Don't go up there. Marcus, please. Just don't. Someone might need help. Or someone might be dangerous. You don't know what's up there. Call the police if you're worried, but don't go up there. There was something in her voice. Not just fear, panic. Like she knew something I didn't. But the sounds had stopped. The apartment above us was silent again. And Olivia was shaking, genuinely terrified, and I found myself comforting her instead of investigating. Okay, I said, pulling her close. Okay, I won't go up there. We'll call the landlord in the morning. But I didn't sleep. I lay there listening, and every sound felt loaded with meaning. The building settling, the radiator clanking, and once, very faintly, what might have been crying. The next day, while Olivia was at work, I went to see Mr. Chun. I need to check the apartment upstairs, I said. I keep hearing things. I think someone might be in there." He was reluctant, but I insisted. Finally, he got the keys, and we went up together. The apartment was dusty and dark, furniture covered with sheets. It smelled closed up and stale. We walked through each room. Living room, kitchen, bedroom, bathroom. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. No evidence anyone had been there. "See," Mr. Chin said. "No one. Old building, makes noises. But in the bedroom, I noticed something. Scratches on the hardwood floor. Fresh scratches, like someone had been dragging heavy furniture. And on one wall, near the floor, something that might have been a dark stain." "What's that?" I pointed. Mr. Chin squinted. "Water damage, probably. I'll have someone look at it." But it didn't look like water damage. It looked like blood. I went home confused and uneasy. That night, I decided to tell Olivia about checking the apartment. "You went up there?" Her voice was sharp. "After I asked you not to, I had to know if someone was in trouble. And was anyone there?" "No, but there were scratches on the floor. And something that looked like blood." She was quiet for a long time. Then, "Old apartments have history, Marcus. People probably died in that apartment. Probably died in this one too. It doesn't mean anything." She was right, technically. But the way she said it, the way she wouldn't meet my eyes, it felt wrong. The footsteps continued. Every night, always between 1:45 and 2:30 a.m. I started recording them on my phone, just to prove I wasn't imagining things. The recordings were clear. You could hear the heavy footsteps, the dragging sounds, and once, very faintly, that woman's voice again. "Please." I showed the recording to my brother over lunch. "That's creepy as hell," he said, listening. "You think someone's actually up there?" I checked. "It's empty. Then what's making that sound?" I didn't have an answer. "How's Olivia dealing with it?" he asked. "She wants me to ignore it. Says it's just old building noises." My brother gave me a look. "That doesn't sound like old building noises, man. That sounds like a person. You check the lease. Maybe someone has permission to be there that Chin doesn't know about." I hadn't thought of that. That afternoon, I went to the city records office and looked up the building's ownership history. The apartment above mine had belonged to an elderly woman named Dorothy Chun, Mr. Chin's aunt. She died 8 months ago at age 86. Natural causes. The apartment had been in probate since then. No current tenant. No subliase. Nothing that would explain the sounds. But then I noticed something else in the records. A restraining order filed 2 years ago. Dorothy Chun had filed it against. My blood went cold. Against Olivia Martinez. My Olivia. I stared at the document, reading it over and over. Subject continues to harass Ms. Chun, appearing at her residence at all hours, claiming to be a relative despite no familial connection. Subject has made verbal threats and attempted to gain access to Ms. Chin's apartment on multiple occasions. There is more. Police reports. At least 6 calls from Dorothy Chun about a woman matching Olivia's description. The last one dated 3 weeks before Dorothy's death. I drove home in a daze. This had to be a mistake. A different Olivia Martinez. But Brooklyn wasn't that big, and the address listed on the restraining order was only 6 blocks from here. When I got home, Olivia was already there, cooking dinner. "Hey babe," she said, smiling. "How was your day? I need to ask you something." My voice came out strained. "Did you know Dorothy Chun?" Her smile froze. Just for a second. It was back, easy and natural. "Who?" "The woman who lived upstairs. The one who died. Did you know her?" "No. Why would I?" "There's a restraining order. Filed 2 years ago. With your name on it." The smile disappeared completely. She turned off the stove, very deliberately, and faced me. That was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding that required police intervention 6 times. She was a paranoid old woman. I was trying to help her. I noticed she was being abused by her home health aide, and when I tried to intervene, she got confused and thought I was harassing her. It was sad, really. It was a good lie. Plausible. The kind of lie that if I wanted to believe her, I could. But I didn't believe her. Why didn't you tell me you knew her? Because it wasn't relevant. Because I knew you'd overreact, like you're doing right now. Her voice was rising, getting defensive. I was trying to help an old woman, and she was mentally ill, and the whole thing was traumatic for me. I didn't want to relive it. And the sounds at night? What about them? Do you know what's causing them? She laughed. Actual laughter. Marcus, are you serious right now? You think I'm up there making noise? How would I even get in? You think I have keys? You think I'm some kind of ghost haunting you? When she put it like that, it sounded insane. I felt insane. There are too many coincidences. Then maybe you should see a therapist, she said coldly, because you're starting to sound paranoid. We didn't speak for the rest of the night. She slept on the couch. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening. The footsteps started at 1:45 a.m., right on schedule. But this time, I noticed something I'd missed before. The timing. The footsteps always started when Olivia was in bed next to me. Or should have been. Very quietly, I got up and went to the living room. The couch was empty. Olivia wasn't there. My heart started racing. I checked the bathroom. Empty. The kitchen. Empty. She wasn't in the apartment. The footsteps continued above me. Running now. Frantic. I grabbed my phone and called 911. There's an intruder in the apartment above mine, I said quietly. I think they might be dangerous. And I think my girlfriend might be in danger. The police arrived within 10 minutes. Mr. Chun, roused from bed, brought keys. We went upstairs together, 2 officers leading. The apartment was dark, empty as it had been before. But now I could see what I'd missed during my previous visit. A sleeping bag in the bedroom closet. Empty food containers. Water bottles. Signs that someone had been living here, hiding here. And on the bedroom wall, hidden behind one of the sheet-covered paintings, hundreds of photographs. All of me. Me leaving for work. Me at the grocery store. Me in my apartment, through the window. Me sleeping. Some of the photos were dated going back over a year. Before I'd even met Olivia. Jesus Christ, one of the officers muttered. We found her in the bathroom. Olivia. She'd hidden in the shower, behind the curtain, perfectly still, waiting. When the officers pulled the curtain back, she looked directly at me and smiled. Hi, baby, she said. I was worried about you. Good thing I came to check. She's in a psychiatric facility now. Long term. The psychiatrists say she has erotomania, a delusional disorder where she believes someone is in love with her. She'd fixated on me over a year before we met. She'd engineered our meeting, our relationship, everything. The dating profile had been fake, carefully designed to match what she knew I was looking for. Dorothy Chun had caught her breaking in, taking pictures. That's why the restraining order. And Dorothy had died not of natural causes, as originally ruled, but of a carefully administered overdose of her heart medication. They exhumed the body. Olivia had killed her. Killed her to get access to the apartment above mine, to be closer to me. The sounds I'd been hearing were Olivia going upstairs through an old service entrance in the building's basement, spending her nights watching me sleep through the floorboards. Sometimes pacing, sometimes crying because I wasn't responding to her the way she wanted. Sometimes dragging furniture around to create hiding spots. The woman's voice saying, please, that had been her practicing. She'd planned to fake a distress call, to get me to come upstairs, to create some kind of scenario where I'd rescue her and we'd bond even more deeply. The scratches on the floor? From moving furniture to cover the air vent she'd been using to watch me. The dark stain? My worst fears confirmed. It was blood. Dorothy's blood. From where Olivia had struck her before administering the overdose. I moved out immediately. New apartment, new neighborhood, new phone number. I told my job I needed to relocate for family reasons, and I'm in Boston now, starting over. But here's what keeps me up at night. I lived with her for weeks. I kissed her goodnight and went to sleep while she went upstairs to stalk me through the floorboards. I made love to someone who'd literally killed to be near me. I shared my bed with a murderer who I thought was my girlfriend. And I didn't know, didn't see it, didn't sense it. She'd been so normal. That's what terrifies me most. She went to work every day as a hospital administrator. She had friends, hobbies, a gym membership. She was functional, successful, by all outward appearances completely sane. The psychiatrists say people like her can compartmentalize. They can maintain a facade of normalcy while their internal world is completely delusional. She genuinely believed we were in love, that I wanted her there, that everything she was doing was normal relationship behavior. I get letters from the facility sometimes. They're screened, heavily redacted, but phrases get through. Can't wait to see you again. Our love is eternal. They can't keep us apart forever. I don't date anymore. I can't. Every woman I meet, I'm looking for signs. Checking if her story adds up. Wondering if she's been watching me. It's no way to live, but it's the only way I feel safe. So if you're reading this, if you're dating someone new and everything seems perfect, maybe too perfect, do the background check. Google them. Look up court records. Ask to meet their friends and family early. Notice if they isolate you. Notice if they push for commitment too quickly. Because the monster doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes she looks like the woman of your dreams, smiling at you across the coffee shop, matching your interests perfectly, laughing at all your jokes. Sometimes the monster is already in your bed. And sometimes, late at night, she's in the apartment above you, watching through the floorboards, counting your breaths, waiting. They say the ocean keeps its secrets, that bodies lost at sea are never found, that the tide takes what it wants and gives nothing back. I never believed in those old superstitions. Not until that weekend. Not until I learned that some people choose the ocean specifically because of what it hides. His name was David, and he was the kind of man who looked good on paper. 38, successful real estate developer, fit, well-traveled, cultured. We met at a gallery opening. One of those pretentious affairs with overpriced wine and abstract art that looked like paint spills. He approached me while I was studying a particularly ugly sculpture, and he made me laugh. That was his gift, I'd learned. He could always make me laugh, even when something inside me was screaming to run. We dated for a year before he proposed. Elegant dinners, weekend trips to the Berkshires, the symphony, the theater. He was generous without being flashy, attentive without being smothering. My friends were jealous. My mother called him the one. Even my dad, who'd hated every boyfriend I'd ever had, approved. The proposal was supposed to happen at his family's beach house in Cape Cod. It's where my parents got engaged, he told me, his eyes soft with nostalgia. 4th generation in my family. It's tradition. I should have asked more questions about his family. About those previous 3 generations. About why. If this house was so important, he'd never mentioned it before. We drove up on a Friday in late September, after tourist season, but before the winter storms. The beaches would be empty, he said. Private. Romantic. The house sat alone on a stretch of rocky coastline, separated from its nearest neighbors by a quarter mile on either side. It was beautiful in that weathered New England way, gray shingles, white trim, a wraparound porch that faced the water. Behind it, beach grass and scrub oak gave way to the dunes, and then the sea. It's stunning, I said, climbing out of the car. The wind was sharp, carrying the salt and rot smell of low tide. Wait until you see the sunset from the deck, David said, grabbing our bags. That's when I'm going to do it. Do what? I teased, even though I knew. I'd seen him being weird around jewelry stores for the past month. I caught him measuring my ring finger while he thought I was asleep. He just smiled and kissed my forehead. You'll see. The interior of the house was exactly what you'd expect. Nautical decor, weathered furniture, family photos covering every surface. I wandered around while David started a fire in the stone fireplace, studying the photographs. His grandparents on their wedding day. His father as a young man, standing next to a boat. David himself as a child, building sandcastles on the beach outside. But there was something odd about the photos. Every single one showed men. His grandfather, his father, David. No women. No grandmothers. No mother. No aunts or sisters or cousins. Where are all the women? I asked. David looked up from the fire. What? In the photos. It's just men. Where are the women in your family? A pause. Then, my mom died when I was young. Accident. And my grandmother died in childbirth with my dad. And my great-grandmother. He trailed off, shrugged. Bad luck, I guess. The women in my family don't tend to live very long. The way he said it was so casual, like he was commenting on the weather. But something about it made my skin prickle. That's sad, I said. It is, but that's why this is important. He came over, wrapped his arms around me from behind, starting new traditions, new luck, new everything. I leaned back against him, watching the fire crackle, trying to shake off the unease. We spent the afternoon walking on the beach. The tide was out, exposing tide pools and rocky outcroppings. David seemed lighter here, happier, like the ocean air had untangled something inside him. He told me stories about summers here as a kid, about learning to fish with his father, about the time he'd found a perfectly intact sand dollar, and his grandfather had called it a blessing from a sea. The ocean gives and takes, he said, picking up a smooth stone and skipping it across the water. You have to respect that. You have to give something to get something back. That sound pagan, I joked. Maybe. He wasn't smiling. My grandfather used to say the ocean was older than God, that it had its own rules. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. David checked his watch. We should head back. I want to catch the sunset from the deck. My stomach fluttered with anticipation. This was it. The proposal. Back at the house, David opened a bottle of champagne and led me out to the deck. The sunset was spectacular, the ocean reflecting the sky's colors like liquid fire. We stood there, glasses in hand, and I waited for him to drop to one knee. Instead, he started talking. My grandfather told me something before he died, David said, staring out at the water. About this house, about our family, about the women. The way he said the women made my champagne taste sour. He said every generation has to make a choice. The ocean demands balance. It gives us success, prosperity, long lives. But it takes something too. It always takes something. David, what are you talking about? He turned to face me. In the dying light, his face looked different. Harder. I'm talking about sacrifice, Jennifer. I'm talking about tradition. I'm talking about the fact that every man in my family has brought a woman to this house. And every time, the ocean has claimed her. I tried to laugh. It came out wrong. That's not funny. It's not meant to be. The champagne glass slipped from my hand, shattering on the deck. David didn't flinch. My great-great-grandfather built this house in 1890. He was poor, struggling, watching his fishing business fail. Then one night, during a storm, he saw something in the water. He said it was a woman, but not quite. She told him she'd make him prosperous. All he had to do was promise her the woman he loved most in the world. Stop it, he agreed. Brought his fiancée here. Walked her into the ocean one night. She drowned, and the next day, his fishing boats brought in the biggest catch anyone had ever seen. From that day on, every generation of men in my family has prospered. Real estate, investments, everything we touch turns to gold. But only if we keep the bargain. This was insane. This was some kind of sick joke. But David's face was completely serious, and we were alone on an empty stretch of beach with no cell service and no neighbors close enough to hear screaming. I don't love you, I said. The lie came out desperate, sharp. Yes, you do. I can tell. And that's what makes you perfect. He moved toward me. I ran. Through the house, out the front door, into the driveway where his car sat. Locked. Of course it was locked. I could hear him behind me, his footsteps measured, unhurried. There's nowhere to go, Jennifer. The nearest house is a quarter-mile away. By the time you reach it, I'll have caught you. And even if you do get there, no one's home. It's off-season. I ran anyway. Down the driveway, onto the road, my heels slipping on the gravel. Behind me, David's footsteps stayed steady. Not running. Not worried. That's when I realized something. The road only went one direction from here, back toward town, miles away. On either side, nothing but scrub and beach and ocean. He knew this area. I didn't. In the growing darkness, I'd be lucky not to break my ankle on the uneven terrain. I needed to be smart. I veered off the road, into the beach grass, and pressed myself flat against a small dune. Controlled my breathing. Listened. His footsteps stopped. Jennifer. His voice was calm, almost kind. I know you're scared. I understand. My grandmother was scared too. My mother was scared. But it's quick. The ocean is cold this time of year. You'll go numb fast. You won't feel much. I bit my lip to keep from making a sound. Tasted blood. I really do love you, he continued. That's what makes this hard. But it's necessary. My father explained it to me before he brought my mother here. He said you have to love them, truly love them, or it doesn't count. The ocean knows. She always knows. He was getting closer. I could hear the grass crunching under his feet. I thought about not doing it. I thought maybe I could break the tradition, be the one generation that says no. But then I looked at my portfolio, my properties, my success. all of it built on this bargain. And I thought about my father, my grandfather, all the men who made this sacrifice so I could have this life. How could I be the one to end it? He was so close now, I could smell his cologne. Come out, Jennifer. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. My hand closed around a rock, smooth and heavy. The same kind he'd been skipping on the beach earlier. When he stepped around the dune, I swung it with everything I had. It connected with his temple. He went down hard, surprise on his face, blood streaming from his head. I didn't wait to see if he'd get up. I ran back toward the house. I needed his car keys, needed his phone, needed something. Inside the house, I tore through his jacket, his bags. Found the keys. Found his phone, locked with a passcode. Useless. Behind me, the front door opened. David stood there, blood covering half his face, swaying slightly. In his hand, he held a diving weight, the kind used to keep scuba divers underwater. That was a mistake, he said. His voice was thick, slurred. I was going to make it easy. Now you've made me angry. I threw the car keys at him and ran for the back of the house. Out the deck door, down the steps to the beach. The ocean was fully dark now, the waves crashing white against the shore. I ran for the water. If the ocean wanted a woman, fine, but it wouldn't be me drowning. It would be David, bleeding and dizzy and stumbling after me into the surf. The water was shocking, freezing. Within seconds, I couldn't feel my feet. But I pushed out, diving under waves, swimming parallel to the shore. Behind me, I heard splashing, heard David screaming my name, his voice getting fainter. I don't know how long I swam. Long enough that my muscles screamed. Long enough that I thought I might die out there anyway. Hypothermia dragging me down just as effectively as David's diving weight. But I saw lights. A house, further down the beach. I changed direction, swimming toward shore, letting the waves carry me. My feet touched sand. I stumbled forward, fell, crawled. Behind me, the ocean was silent. No splashing, no screaming. The house had lights on. Someone was home. I collapsed on their doorstep and pounded until an elderly couple opened the door. Please, I gasped. Call the police. Someone tried to kill me. They found David 3 days later, washed up on a beach 2 miles north. The official cause of death was drowning, complicated by a head injury. The diving weight was still clutched in his hand. The police investigated, of course. But my story checked out. The beach house, the isolated location, David's injury from where I'd hit him with a rock. Clear self-defense. They call me lucky, a survivor. What they didn't find, why I didn't tell them, was what I saw in the water that night. When I was swimming, exhausted and cold and sure I was going to die, I felt something brush against my leg. Not seaweed, not fish. Something that felt like fingers. Something that pulled me, gently but firmly, toward shore. And when I looked back, treading water, I saw her. Just for a second. A woman's face beneath the surface, pale and beautiful and ancient. She looked at me with black eyes that held no mercy, no compassion. Just a cold, eternal hunger. Then she smiled, and she dove, dragging something down with her. I like to think it was just hallucination. Hypothermia playing tricks. But sometimes, late at night, I remember that smile. I remember the way she looked at David like he'd been promised to her. Like he'd always belonged to her. And his family's bargain had simply been delayed, not broken. I sold the beach house as soon as probate cleared. Used the money to move across the country. I don't go near the ocean anymore. Don't even look at it when I'm forced to fly over it. Because I understand now what David's grandfather meant. The ocean gives and takes. It keeps its bargains. And that night, on that beach, the ocean took what it was owed. Just not the woman they'd promised. The men in David's family prospered because they gave the ocean women who loved them. Women who trusted them. Women who wouldn't see the betrayal coming. But I didn't die. I fought. I survived. And the ocean? The ocean didn't like having its bargain broken. So it took David instead. Took him the way it had probably wanted to all along, if the men in his family had ever been brave enough to sacrifice themselves instead of the women they claimed to love. Sometimes I wonder about the others. David's mother, his grandmother, his great-grandmother. Women who loved men who walked them into the ocean and held them under. Women whose deaths were blamed on accidents, bad luck, the tragedy of loving men in a cursed family. I wonder if they saw her too in those final moments. That pale woman beneath the waves, smiling her hungry smile. And I wonder if maybe, just maybe, she was glad when I survived. When I turned the tables and fed her the man instead. Because the ocean keeps its secrets. But sometimes, if you listen closely to the waves, you can hear them. The voices of all those women crying out across the years. Warning you, begging you, don't trust him. Don't follow him to the water. Don't believe the lies about tradition and family and love. The ocean gives and takes, and it always gets what it's owed. This will be the last thing I write. By the time you read this, if you read this, I'll either be dead or I'll have done something that makes me wish I was. But someone needs to know the truth about Thomas, about what he did, about what he's still doing. We were married for 5 years before the anniversary trip. 5 years of what I thought was a good marriage. Not perfect, but good. We had a house in the suburbs, steady jobs, a golden retriever named Murphy. We talked about having kids. We talked about growing old together. I thought I knew him. That's the joke, right? The cosmic punchline. You sleep next to someone for 5 years. You know their coffee order and their work stress and the way they scrunch their nose when they laugh. And you think that means you know them. You don't know anything. Thomas planned the anniversary trip as a surprise. He told me to take the week off work, pack for somewhere warm, and trust him. I love that about him. His spontaneity, his romantic gestures. When we'd first started dating, he'd surprise me with a weekend in Paris. For our first anniversary, a cooking class in Tuscany. He was good at grand gestures. The morning we left, he still wouldn't tell me where we were going. It's a surprise, he said, grinning. You're going to love it. We drove to the airport. I kept trying to guess. Hawaii? Mexico? He just smiled and shook his head. At the gate, I finally saw our destination, Belize. Belize? I'd never mentioned wanting to go to Belize. I did a ton of research, Thomas said, squeezing my hand. There's this amazing eco-resort. Private bungalows, beach access, snorkeling. It'll be perfect. And it was perfect at first. The resort was beautiful. Thatched roof bungalows scattered along a pristine beach, connected by wooden walkways through the jungle. Ours was the furthest from the main lodge, tucked into the trees for maximum privacy. You could hear howler monkeys at dawn and see tropical birds from the hammock on our porch. This is amazing, I told Thomas that first night, watching the sunset turn the Caribbean waters gold. How did you find this place? I have my ways, he said, but something in his tone felt off. Not secretive exactly, more like satisfied, like he'd accomplished something important. That night, we had dinner at the resort restaurant. Fresh fish, local beer, salt air. Thomas was attentive, affectionate. He kept holding my hand across the table, looking at me with this intensity one hadn't seen in months. I love you so much, he said suddenly. You know that, right? Of course I know that. No, I mean, really love you. More than anything. His grip on my hand tightened. You're everything to me, Rachel. My whole world. It should have been romantic. It was romantic, but there was something in his eyes that made me uneasy, a kind of desperate intensity. I love you too, I said, pulling my hand back gently. Are you okay? You seem, I don't know, intense. I'm perfect. This week is going to be perfect. He signaled for the check. Come on, let's go to bed. I have a surprise for tomorrow. The next morning, he woke me early. Get dressed. We're going on an adventure. The adventure, it turned out, was a boat trip. Thomas had chartered a private boat to take us to a remote island, one of the dozens of small cays scattered off the coast. There's amazing snorkeling there, he explained. Completely secluded. It'll just be us and the ocean. The boat captain was a local man named Carlos, weathered and quiet. He barely looked at me during the hour-long trip, focusing on navigating around coral reefs. The island, when we reached it, was tiny, maybe 200 yards across. Nothing but sand, scrub brush, and a few palm trees. Beautiful in a desolate way. This is it, I asked, looking around. No structures, no other boats, just empty beach stretching in both directions. This is it, Thomas confirmed. Carlos is going to come back for us at sunset. Until then, we have the whole place to ourselves. Carlos handed Thomas a cooler and a bag, nodded curtly, and motored away. I watched the boat disappear, feeling a sudden clutch of anxiety. "Hey," Thomas pulled me close. "It's okay. It's romantic. Just you and me in paradise." And for a while it was nice. We sat up under a palm tree, swam in the clear water, lay in the sun. Thomas was relaxed, happy, normal. Then he suggested we go snorkeling. "The reef is supposed to be incredible on the east side," he said, pulling out masks and fins from the bag Carlos had given him. "Come on, I'm a decent swimmer, but I'd never been much for snorkeling. Something about breathing through a tube while floating face down felt unnatural. But Thomas loved it, and this was his anniversary surprise, so I agreed. We swam out maybe 50 yards to where the reef dropped off into deeper water. It was beautiful. Coral formations, tropical fish, the sun filtering down through the water in shafts of light. Thomas dove down, pointing out things clearly in his element. I was floating, watching a school of blue tangs when I felt his hand on my ankle. Not just touching, gripping. Hard. I tried to kick free, but his grip tightened. He pulled, dragging me down. Panic flooded through me. I tried to surface, but he had both hands on my legs now, pulling me deeper. My mask filled with water. I couldn't breathe. I kicked hard, connected with something. His face, maybe, and he let go. I shot to the surface, ripping the mask off, gasping. Thomas surfaced a few seconds later, laughing. "Got you," he said, wiping blood from his nose where I'd kicked him. "You should have seen your face." I was treading water, coughing, my heart hammering. "That wasn't funny." "Oh, come on. It was just a prank. You held me underwater, Thomas." I couldn't breathe. I thought. My voice broke. His expression shifted. Annoyance flashed across his face before he smoothed it into contrition. Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. I thought you'd think it was funny. What kind of person thinks drowning your wife is funny?" I swam back to shore without another word. Thomas followed, apologizing, trying to make it better. But something had shifted. That desperate intensity from the night before was back in his eyes, mixed with something new. Anger. Like I'd ruined something by not thinking his prank was hilarious. We spent the rest of the afternoon in tense silence. When Carlos returned at sunset, I practically ran to the boat. That night, back at the resort, I pretended to have a headache and went to bed early. Thomas stayed up, drinking at the bar. Through the bungalow's thin walls, I could hear him talking to someone on the phone, his voice low and urgent. I couldn't make out words, but the tone was clear. He was angry. The next day, he acted like nothing had happened. "New plan," he announced at breakfast. "I rented a car. There's a Mayan ruin I want to show you. It's off the beaten path. Most tourists don't even know about it." Every instinct told me to say no, to insist we stay at the resort around other people. But I was in Belize, in paradise, on my anniversary trip. I was being paranoid. Thomas had pulled a stupid, thoughtless prank. That didn't make him dangerous. So I said yes. We drove inland, away from the coast. The paved road gave way to dirt, then to barely a track through the jungle. The rental car bumped along, branches scraping the sides. "Are you sure you know where we're going?" I asked. "GPS says it's just ahead." But we hadn't had cell service for the past hour. His GPS was showing a blue dot on a blank map. The ruins, when we finally reached them, were barely ruins at all. Just a few moss-covered stones scattered in a clearing, being slowly reclaimed by the jungle. No signs, no paths, no other tourists. "This is it," I asked, climbing out of the car. "Isn't it great?" Completely undiscovered. Thomas grabbed a backpack from a car. "Come on, let's explore." We walked into the jungle, following what might have been a path or might have been an animal trail. The canopy was thick overhead, blocking most of the light. It was humid, oppressive, the air thick with insect sound. Thomas walked ahead of me, pushing through vines. He was talking something about Mayan history, but I wasn't listening. I was thinking about the snorkeling incident, about the phone call, about how isolated we were, how no one knew exactly where we were, about how easy it would be for someone to die out here and never be found. "Thomas," I said suddenly, "I want to go back." He stopped, turned. "What?" "We just got here. I don't feel well. I think it's the heat." "Come on, Ratch. There's a cenote just ahead. You'll love it." A cenote, a natural limestone pool. Beautiful, secluded, perfect for swimming, perfect for drowning. No, I want to go back. Now. His expression hardened. You're being ridiculous. Maybe, but I still want to go back. We stared at each other. In the dense jungle shadows, his face looked different. Colder. Fine, he said finally. Let's go. We walked back to the car in silence. But when we got there, Thomas paused, his hand on the door handle. Do you know what date it is? He asked quietly. Tuesday. No, I mean the date. June 14th. Our anniversary. June 14th, he repeated. Do you know what else happened on June 14th? Something in his tone made my blood run cold. What are you talking about? 5 years ago today, I married you. But 6 years ago today, I buried my first wife. The jungle seemed to go silent around us. You said she died in a car accident. Before we met. She did. Right here in Belize. We were on vacation, celebrating our 5th anniversary. It was an accident. She drowned. He was still holding the car door, not looking at me. Thomas, I loved her so much, he continued, his voice distant. But she was going to leave me. I found emails. She'd been planning it for months. Going to file for divorce as soon as we got home. She said I was suffocating her. Controlling. Can you imagine? After everything I did for her, my hand moved slowly to my pocket where my phone was. No service, but maybe if I could. I brought her to that cenote, Thomas said. She didn't want to go. Said she was tired. But I insisted. And when we were swimming, when we were far from shore, I held her under. Just for a minute. Just until she stopped struggling. He finally looked at me. His eyes were empty. It was supposed to look like an accident. And it did. The police barely investigated. Tourist deaths happen all the time. Tragic but common. Thomas, but then I met you. And I thought, maybe I can try again. Maybe it'll be different. And it was for a while. You were perfect, compliant, trusting. But then you started getting independent. Started talking about taking that promotion, the one that would mean traveling without me. Started mentioning that women's weekend with your college friends. So what? My voice came out shrill. You think that means I'm leaving you? Aren't you? He took a step toward me. Don't lie to me, Rachel. I found the apartment listings on your laptop. The divorce lawyer's number in your phone. You're planning to leave me, just like she did. He was right. I'd been planning to leave him. Not because of anything he'd done. He'd been a good husband, attentive, loving. But something had fell off for months. A growing sense of suffocation, of being watched, of needing to account for every minute. I started to feel like I was drowning even before the snorkeling incident. I'm sorry, I said, backing away. I am sorry. I won't leave. We can work on things. We can. It's too late for that. He reached into the backpack he'd been carrying. Pulled out rope. I've already planned everything. The cenote is deep. No one will find you for months, maybe years. And I'll be the grieving widower. Again, I ran. Into the jungle, away from the car, away from Thomas and his rope and his calm, dead eyes. Branches tore my clothes, roots tried to trip me. Behind me, I could hear him following. Not running. Walking. Confident. You can't get away, Rachel, he called. We're miles from anywhere. You don't even know which direction leads back to civilization. He was right. I was lost, running blindly through jungle that all looked the same. But I kept running anyway, because stopping meant dying. I don't know how long I ran. Long enough that my lungs burned and my legs cramped. Long enough that Thomas's voice faded behind me. Long enough that I started to think maybe I'd lost him. Then I stumbled out of the jungle and onto a road. Not the track we'd driven in on. A real road, paved with actual traffic. A bus was approaching, colorful and loud, packed with locals. I jumped into the road, waving my arms, screaming. The bus driver hit the brakes, horn blaring. The door opened, and a middle-aged woman looked down at me, concerned, speaking rapid Spanish I didn't understand. Please, I gasped. Please help me. My husband, he's trying to kill me. Please. I don't know how much she understood, but she pulled me onto the bus. The passengers stared as I collapsed into a seat, crying, still looking back at the jungle for any sign of Thomas. The police found him 3 hours later, still in the jungle, still carrying the rope. He tried to claim I'd had some kind of mental breakdown, that I'd run off after an argument and he'd been searching for me. But the rope made that story implausible. And when they searched further, they found his first wife's death had some irregularities that had been overlooked at the time. The case is still ongoing. Thomas is in custody, awaiting trial for murder, his first wife's murder, since intent is harder to prove when you stop someone before they complete the crime. His lawyers are good. They're building a defense around mental illness, around my paranoia, around the lack of physical evidence that he actually intended to hurt me. They might win. He might get out. That's why I'm writing this. Because I need someone to know the truth. Thomas married me to kill me. He planned it for months, maybe years. The anniversary trip to Belize was never about celebration. It was about recreation. He was literally recreating his first wife's murder, like some kind of sick ritual. And if he gets out, if his lawyers succeed, he'll do it again. He'll find another woman, charm her, marry her, wait for that moment when she shows any sign of independence or autonomy, and then he'll take her somewhere remote and beautiful and murder her. So please, if you're reading this, believe women when they say something feels wrong. Believe them when they say their partner is too controlling, too possessive, too intense. Believe them before it's too late. Because I was lucky. I ran in the right direction. I found that bus. But Thomas's first wife didn't. And the next woman, if there's one, might not either. Love shouldn't feel like drowning. It shouldn't feel like suffocation. It shouldn't require you to make yourself smaller, quieter, more compliant. And if it does, run. Run as fast as you can, in any direction, and don't look back. Because the man you think you know, the man you married, the man you trusted with your life, he might be planning to take it. Conclusion. What I've learned, I've told you 4 stories now. For couples who should have lived happily ever after. For people who learned too late that the person they loved was someone else entirely. Sarah survived because she listened to her instincts. Marcus survived because he refused to ignore the evidence. Jennifer survived because she fought back. Rachel survived through luck and quick thinking. But they all have something in common now. They're alone. They don't date. They don't trust. They see potential danger in every smile, every kind gesture, every romantic gesture. Is that any way to live? Probably not. But it's living, which is more than can be said for the bodies under Jake's cabin, for Dorothy Chun, for David's mother and grandmother and great-grandmother, for Thomas's first wife. So here's what I want you to take away from these stories. Trust your gut. That tickle at the base of your spine, that small voice saying something's wrong. Listen to it. Don't let love or loneliness or the desire for partnership override millions of years of survival instinct. Watch for the red flags. Isolation, possessiveness, insistence on privacy, anger when you assert independence. These aren't quirks or signs of passion. They're warning signs. Tell people where you're going. Always. Even if it seems unromantic or untrusting. Even if your partner pouts about keeping things just between us. Someone should always know where you are. Don't ignore coincidences. When things don't add up, restraining orders, multiple dead partners, insistence on specific dates or locations. Investigate. Google exists for a reason. Remember that monsters look like people. They have jobs and hobbies and charming smiles. They tell jokes and buy flowers and remember your coffee order. The monster isn't obvious. That's what makes them dangerous. And finally, being alone is better than being dead. Don't stay in a relationship because you're afraid of being alone. Don't ignore danger signs because you've invested time or emotion or because you've already introduced them to your family. Better to be single and safe than coupled and buried. These stories are real. The names have been changed. Some details have been altered for privacy. But the core events? They happened. They're happening right now, somewhere, to someone who thinks they're in love. Don't let it happen to you. Check your locks. Keep your phone charged. Tell your friends where you're going. And listen to your gut. Because the person sleeping next to you right now, statistically speaking, they're the most dangerous person in your life. Sweet dreams.